Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast and the Adobe Summit here in Vegas, where it seems that everywhere I look, there are people talking about redefining the customer experience and personalization. But I wanted to get beyond the buzzwords and learn more about the real results and how technology is delivering them. So I read a report from Accenture Interactive today that stated how a small group of innovative CMOs are helping their organisations generate an average 11% higher shareholder return when compared to other industry peers. How? By delivering hyper-relevant customer experiences. Now, these marketing leaders, the pioneering 17%, are driving transformational change at the highest levels of their organisations, helping them to respond quickly to their customers' changing needs. Okay, so this report captured my attention. So I managed to track down Glenn Hartman, head of Accenture Interactive North America, which is also a more than $6 billion business unit dedicated to helping the world's leading brands and helping them create the best customer experiences on the planet. So I asked him to come on the show today, and I'm delighted he accepted. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way back to Vegas so we can speak with Glenn Hartman from Accenture Interactive. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, Neil. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you today. So I'm Glenn Hartman. I lead Accenture Interactive in North America. And I also have global responsibility for all of our marketing offerings.
So Accenture is a famous global professional services company, providing a broad range of services and solutions in strategy, consulting, digital technology and operations. But just for the benefit of listeners scattered all over the world, can you offer maybe a bit of an overview of the kind of problems that you solve for your customers?
Sure. Accenture Interactive is focused on one thing, and it's quite easy to think about it. We are helping our clients create and deliver and run the best experiences on the planet. And when we talk about experience, there's a lot of definitions of that word.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the experience of, say, a website or a mobile app or thinking a traditional UX. It's much more the broader experience and the full journey that a customer could go on, any way that a brand could engage with a customer. And that includes things beyond marketing. It could be sales, could be customer service, loyalty, different experiences online or in store, almost any way that a brand can communicate and try and prove out its brand promise through the experience. So when you think about all the things that have to come together to make those things happen across that journey, there's lots of technology, there's lots of data, there's lots of creativity and creative work, and there's media, there's all the technology enablement to make some of those things work. Then there's even the management consulting aspects like operating models and new skill sets, change management. And this is where you really get the best of Accenture that's been, as you said, just a leader in large, complex, global consulting projects. And you add in Accenture Interactive on top of it that is focused on this big E experience, as we call it. And you have a way to be able to create those experiences at scale.
Now, I am quite excited to get you on the podcast today, as you've recently released a new report at Accenture about how a pioneering 17% of marketers are actually driving transformational change at the highest levels of their organisations and helping them to respond quickly to the changing customer needs. So can you tell me more about that report and how many people you actually surveyed and what you actually discovered?
Sure. We do a lot of just really trying to understand the customer and understand the marketplace and helping our clients do the same. And it's very interesting to get their perspective. So what we did is took a broad look at how marketing and experience is actually affecting the whole enterprise. And what that ended up being was interviews not just with the CMO, which we talked to around 500 of them at large global 2,000 companies, but also the CEO. And we talked to almost 1,000 of those. So if you combine that and understand how you have people that are looking to advocate for the customer, understanding the customer, which the CMO is supposed to understand and supposed to be the leader of, but how that relates to the CEO's agenda for real business change, business transformation, and business outcomes, that's the best part of this survey. So when you were talking about the 11% that are pioneers, it's an interesting statistic because we're trying to link those two things together, how experience affects outcomes for the business or maybe drives different business behavior. And it's kind of a small percentage when you think of it, that people are actually having that connection. And that was the key finding for us, is that, how do we get more people to have experience be put at the center of their business strategy?
Now, one of the things that really stood out for me was how consumers are increasingly buying from brands that have a clear purpose that aligns to their personal values and their personal beliefs. I mean, did that surprise you? And do you think that CMOs now understand the importance of being highly relevant to their customers' lives?
It's probably the most important question most of our clients are asking on behalf of their customers. Yeah. One of the ways we think about this, and a lot of other service companies and agencies and others are sometimes looking at it from one dimension, maybe technology enabled, maybe creative, maybe brand strategy. But what we're trying to do at Accenture Interactive is bring those together. So what ends up happening is we look at brand in a very different way. So we see brand as a promise. If you think of the way people look at a brand, they understand that there's a way they can expect things from that brand. There's a certain promise on what it's like to work with them or engage with them, or a special feeling. Even if you just take some of the most famous brand promises ever, something like the automotive industry. Volvo and BMW are both automotive manufacturers, but when you think of BMW, you think of performance. That's the brand promise. Think of Volvo, you think of safety, for instance. And there's a million examples across every category. The reason why I mention it is that today, there's no longer a brand promise that just gets broadcast out. And over time, people will adopt it. There's different types of proof points, and the way that those promises are kept is through the experience. So when you think about how those experiences are delivered, and all the things, marketing and branding and creative, are now inextricably linked to technology and analytics and different kinds of workflows. The most important part of all of this is to really understand how that brand promise can be not just relevant to the customer. And that's, some people talk about personalization or different ways to be relevant, but it has to empathize with the customer. They need to start to look at the brand promise and look at the success of that brand as defined by the customer, not by the company, not by the brand. It's a different set of outcomes that actually mean something to the customer.
As someone that was an IT guy in a former life, I've watched marketing become much more reliant on technology and new technology skills. So how do you think the marketing function is going to change over the next 3 years because of that?
Well, I mentioned just a moment ago that marketing is inextricably linked to technology and creative and data and a variety of other things. But I think that the natural evolution of creative and marketing and these kinds of enablers to really put a brand together and present that is going to change in the way that I was saying of how closely aligned that brand can be with that experience and how serious the marketing teams will be to extend that experience beyond just marketing. Mm-hmm. So it's important to understand how the brand affects sales, how the brand affects loyalty, how the brand affects customer service in a very tangible way. And the way that this will change is where the CMO will move from someone that is marketing to customers and will be starting to market with them and partner with them. So all of us as consumers or customers, this can work in the B2B space as much as B2C. We have different needs at different times. I travel a lot for my business, for instance, and I am a loyal member of a major hotel company, and they know everything about me. I'm the super duper, highest level. They know what I eat at their restaurants. They know my preferences for different things in the room, like pillows, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm wildly different person when I travel for business than I am when I travel with my family. Even something as simple as when I travel for business, I usually like to have my hotel room right next to the elevator because I'm going to get an early flight. I want to get in and out. But when I'm with my family, I want to be as far away from the elevator as possible because I'm going to be a bad father, keep my daughter up late, and I want her to be able to sleep in the morning. Yeah. But there's no way for them to know that unless they understand what I need in the moment. And that new type of ways to anticipate that or react to that and bring together a variety of different kinds of experiences in the moment is what's going to make a big difference. And from a technology standpoint, when you're asking on that realm, if you think of all of the different technology enablement, there's a lot of promises that are somewhat similar from most of the primary vendors. Yeah. And understanding how those, most of them all have CRM, most of them all have content, most of them all have commerce, most of them all, a couple of them just announced CDP platforms. So just recently this week. So how do they all actually work together? How does the data flow together to make that happen just within those individual stacks? But then how do they work with each other? These Global 2000 companies don't just have one technology solution. Yeah. So the next effort is to say, well, how do you put the experience in the middle and make all of these interdependencies and dependencies come together through a new type of integration to drive those heightened level of experience that really works in the moment for a customer?
We all know about the hype that surrounds personalisation, especially here at the Adobe Summit. But are you seeing businesses rising to that challenge of creating that joined-up customer experience at all touch points? Are people rising to that, or brands rising to that now?
It's an aspiration.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of looking at those touch points as channels is part of the danger, part of the problem, and why it doesn't happen. If we can see, and we do see this now, CMOs and brand managers and others, they're reverse engineering around the customer in a different way. So instead of saying, I'm going to optimize this touch point or this channel, and I'm going to make sure they connect, and I can make sure a customer service representative understands the purchase behavior from the e-commerce system. Those are all good and important things, and we're seeing more and more of that happening. But it's not necessarily relevant for the most important customers or the most valuable impact. I'll give you one example. So as a very simple example, we once had as a financial services client, had a website that was helping to qualify people for mortgage loans. Yeah. And there was a form on there to fill out. And we noticed, or the client noticed, that on question number 12, a lot of people abandoned the form. So they say, okay, from a user experience standpoint, let's fix that. Yeah. So it's a little easier and we'll get more people to sign up, et cetera. So they have to go in and change the technology, had to change the template. There was some data issues. It took a while. It was a big initiative to have to fix all that up. They finally do it. And it turns out that the results at the end were actually not different. Because the people that were really qualified, the ones that would have converted anyway, they didn't have a problem with question 14 or 12 or whatever it was. Because they were looking at the experience as a channel or in the aggregate, instead of really listening to the customer and understanding what they were trying to get accomplished from an outcome, it caused a challenge to make real useful change. So I think the aspiration's there. People understand the components that need to come together, but it's really goes back to empathizing with the customer and coming up with use cases that make sense to them and choosing your moments, picking which pieces of data to pull together and which functions to pull together to make that happen.
Now, you help many of the biggest brands in the world create the best customer experiences on the planet. So are you finding that all brands now get the importance of creating experiences too? And do you have any inspiring client stories that you could maybe share with us, just to help people listening visualize what you do?
Sure. So there are a couple of great examples. We have been redefining and helping clients redefine experiences in a variety of different industries. One that's and people can look up in the press is we've been working closely with Disney at their innovation center at Disney Parks and others to redefine the experience for entertainment and what it means to have immersive entertainment that's connected to different Disney products and content. This includes some of the things we have at the Adobe conference here, like interactive movie posters and other kinds of things that I invite you to go see if any of your listeners are here in Las Vegas. There are other examples that are even more broad, maybe one in the travel industry, where we have been redesigning experiences for Carnival that are allowing people to have holistic experiences on the boat, also leading up to their experience on the ship, on how their preferences can be matched. It includes being able to walk around with what we have as a medallion that you can either wear as a bracelet or a necklace or clip onto a purse or any way around that will track your preferences throughout the ship, what you like to eat, what you your favorite drink, what activities you want, and it's connected to all the services on the ship. And so much so that if you were to belly up to the bar on day 2, they would already, you could say, I'll just have the usual, they give you your drink, and it would already be paid for in an e-commerce system that's all seamless, just as an example. And this includes designing the experience, designing before you get on the boat, and after. And then also the way the services around the medallion work and integrate with different kinds of scheduling and other systems on the boat. So there's a high technology component and a high design for experience there. Other examples are in lots of different industries. One that comes to mind that might really highlight, we'll highlight with the best of thinking on how to truly employ empathy within an experience. And that is for a grocer that we're working with.
Yeah.
And that grocer, if you think about it, you asked about the next step of personalization. So if the grocer, think of a grocery store, since the beginning of time, they have 3 basic metrics that they use to measure success. People come into the store. When they're in the store, you want to help them buy more things that are on certain inventory because they're working with the CPG companies to get that. They're usually on the end caps of an aisle or at the checkout. There's certain impulse things they want you to buy. And the last one is just sell more, get the cart bigger. So if the personalization was working really well and you went to your grocery store, and say you go there every Saturday to shop for your family, when you get there, if all the technology is working, you're a loyal member, they know you're there through location technology, they can see your shopping list. And they'll say, there's all the things. But they also know one time you came to a do-it-yourself cooking class, they know you like to cook. So while you're there, they see the shopping list, they start serving you up coupons and making sure you buy your stuff on there. They maybe do some cross-sell and upsell to some other products that are on the CPG list to get rid of that. Or maybe they'll say, listen, don't look at your shopping list as a shopping list. Let's look at it as a set of ingredients. And if you were to add these 3 other ones, you can make a recipe tonight, and here's a little video on the recipe and a coupon. It's all working, right? And that's personalization, and it's quite good. But let's just say one day you show up on a Tuesday at 11:15 instead of Saturday like you always do. All of a sudden, there's something different. Your intent is different. Your needs are different. What actually happened is your son got sick. You had to pull him out of school. You had to leave work. What you're there is to get the cough medicine, Robitussin, and a humidifier. You got to get to the prescription, get to the pharmacy, and get in and out of there as fast as you can so you can get the kid home. You can get back to work. Your significant other is going to go take care of him. It's all stress. So at that moment, when you walk in, they know you're there. Instead of giving you coupons or recipes, you don't want that.
Yeah.
Maybe they should take your list and heat map it in the store and show you where everything is on the shelf so you can get in and out as quickly as possible. Or maybe you're just greeted at the door by a concierge and they say, Neil, I know you're here. Something's up. I've already got your stuff for you here. And you know what? Don't pay. We got you covered. I already know you're in our loyalty program. The commerce is done. Just get out of here. Cool. Now that is true empathy. But what you did is you broke the rule of every single grocery store. There's no cross-sell upsell. There's no bigger cart. There's no more trips. There's none of that. And the company wouldn't even know how to track that as success. It would be looked at as a failed experience. But to the customer, it's the most miraculous thing that could ever happen. And that is not personalization. That is a heightened level of relevance that is so ingrained in something you needed in the moment that will drive brand loyalty. You'll shop there forever.
So for people listening that cannot attend the summit this year, can you tell me a little bit more about what they've missed and a little more about some of the info on the demos, such as the DuPont virtual showroom and Disney Dumbo mirror? There's so much going on here that people are missing, but can you maybe just help them visualize that?
Sure. I mean, Adobe is at the top of its game, and they are not disappointing at all with this conference. And we're honored to be, again, we were named this year as their Global Partner of the Year. And we've been highlighting a lot of different demos in our booth as well that are all leveraging Adobe's technology. So, I mean, some of the key takeaways that they have is the way that they're starting to look at hosting a lot of their applications in the cloud in an integrated way, so that way it can be more agile. Another is to be able to understand the connection between product design and service design and how that can be realized. Their new CDP, the customer data approach that they have, is that integrates across all of their Experience Cloud and Commerce Cloud and others, is quite interesting to look at. So you can enable experiences that we talked about today in a much more rapid way. So, I mean, there's countless examples. I think probably the biggest part that people should take note of is the way that these experiences that are being enabled by Adobe are much more being much more looked at from a business outcome perspective, and some of the things that we just talked about, where it's more industry specific, more customer specific, and less technology focused. That's a new thing, and I think that they're building into the way the products are set is to be ready to respond and be able to anticipate these new customer needs.
What about yourself there? What have you learned from this year's summit? And is there anything that you've seen or heard that you'll be thinking about on that plane ride home?
Sure. I mean, we have a lot of clients here, and they're all asking us a lot of the questions that I'll be thinking about to try and serve them. And that, how do they take advantage of all these new things that they're seeing here? And it's really, in the end, a question of integration. A lot of them have legacy systems. A lot of them use some of Adobe's things, and they use some of others. They're looking to us to help figure out how to bring those things together to bring experiences to life. And there's so much. People talk about big data. It's not so much about collecting all the data. It's the gold nuggets. Which pieces of data do they need to actually drive something? They talk about ubiquitous connected experiences and technology enablement for that. Well, how do you prototype something really quickly to roll out something to empower a CMO to go drive real change and advocate for a customer? That's better than coming up with a whole new customer database or a whole new platform. There's just certain kinds of things you keep hearing about, talks about, well, how do you have the CMO and the CIO work together? I mean, that's real nice, but beyond understanding how to break down some of those silos, which is important, how do you actually get something out the door quickly and in a cost-effective way where you can test it and learn from that and then figure out how to scale? These are the questions to get those gold nuggets and bring them back to our clients is what I'll be thinking about from the show.
Well, we've covered so many topics and a lot of ground today. So for anyone listening that wants to keep up to speed with the great work that you're doing, what's the best way of finding you online and maybe even contacting a member of your team if they do have any additional questions?
Yeah, well, they should just call me at home. I'm available 24/7.
555.
Yes,
right?
my wife would love that, and I think it's going to add a lot to the weekends. But in all seriousness, if you just go to www.accenture.com/Accenture Interactive, you'll find everything about us and our client examples and much more.
Well, I know how incredibly busy you are. You've got to dash straight after speaking with me to see somebody else. But I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and speak with me today. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, Neil. It was great. And have a great rest of your show.
And if anyone would like to find out more about Accenture Interactive, pop along to www.accenture.com/interactive, where you should find all the information that you need. I think it's worth pointing out too that Accenture Interactive was ranked by Ad Age as the largest and fastest growing digital agency globally for the last 3 consecutive years. And Glenn was a great guest today and delivered so much value and so much insights in the interview. But I also want to highlight how he was the perfect gentleman. Because between me and you, there is no such thing as a quiet place or somewhere quiet enough to record a podcast absolutely anywhere in Vegas. And when you're walking around, you probably don't notice these kind of things. And it's not until you actually want to record a conversation you realise just how much noise is everywhere. But I remembered that on any floor of the hotel here at the Venetian, there are some soft furnishings not too far from the elevator. And that's where we recorded this episode, directly under a chandelier on floor 8 of the Venetian. And I've got a feeling that podcast interview is one that neither of us will ever forget. But keep your emails coming in to me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, and keep your tweets at Neil C. Hughes coming too, because I love to hear your thoughts, opinions and expertise on any subject that we tackle on this show. But I'm afraid we've reached the end of this one. So all that's left for me to say is a big thank you to Glenn, and even bigger thank you to everyone listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.